Hi, I'm Ehis, and welcome to the very first episode of Unmuted Moments. This podcast has been on my heart for a while now, so I'm so excited to finally get to share it with you. Before diving in, though, I just want to say a simple thank you. Thank you for listening, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being curious about what this guy called Ehis has to say. But seriously, though, I'm really thankful and appreciative of all your support. So, Unmuted Moments is a podcast for young professionals and anyone exploring the journey to finding and owning your voice. In this episode, I'm sharing my own story, my journey, and why this podcast means a lot to me. And some of these moments I can laugh about now, but back then they felt heavy because my voice did not come easy for me. Following this episode, I'm going to have my very first guest. She grew up in Cuba, in Russia, and in Kentucky. She's an investor, a storyteller, and a Forbes magazine contributor. And she also has her own podcast. Her journey to finding her voice is nothing short of incredible, and I can't wait for you to hear it. So stick around after this episode for that. Other upcoming guests are going to include an executive coach and professionals in finance, in medicine, in tech, and in entrepreneurship. We're going to have some CEOs in the mix as well. And I can't wait for you to hear how their journeys impacted their voices. So now, let's dive into my story. Before we begin, let me ask you though, have you ever stayed quiet not because you didn't have anything to say, but because you weren't sure if your voice would be heard? You know you have the potential to contribute, to share your ideas, to make an impact, but something inside of you is always saying, what if I'm not good enough? What if they don't take me seriously? For years, I wrestled with those same doubts, and I stayed quiet in rooms where I had something to offer. I was holding back because I didn't feel confident enough to speak. Even starting this podcast has brought some of those same doubts. I've asked myself, what if no one listens? What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm not the right person to even start this podcast? But here's what I've learned over the years though. Finding your voice isn't about waiting until you feel ready. It's about starting right where you are. If I waited until I felt 100% confident about this podcast, it may really not exist. Sometimes you just have to take that first step. So today I'm sharing my story, the doubts I have faced, the moments that have shaped me, and the lessons that have helped me to unmute my own voice. So as you listen, I want you to think about 3 questions today. 1, what's holding you back from using your voice to the extent that you want to? 2, what has helped you grow in the past even if they were painful? And 3, steps can you take today that can help you unmute your voice? My story begins in Nigeria, where I was born and raised. At 4 a.m. on most weekdays, before the sun rose, I would sit next to my mom as she lit firewood to cook meals for her food cart business. The air smelled like smoke and morning dew, and in the background, we'll be listening to a radio station called Voice of America. I know nobody listens to radio these days, but this was about 20, 30 years ago. But back then, I didn't know I would be the first in my family to step on a plane alone and travel to America to study. When I moved here at 17, I carried more than just my suitcases. I also carried the weight of my African accent and the fear of being misunderstood. I know if you've listened to my podcast trailer, I mentioned this before, but I think it's worth repeating because that weight shaped how I showed up in every room, every classroom, and in every conversation. So where I come from, people listen to those with money or power. If you came from a poor family like I did, your voice didn't carry any weight at all. So my natural inclination was to stay quiet. I stayed quiet in classrooms, even when I had something valuable to add or to share, because I was afraid of being misunderstood. And one of the hardest things for me was when somebody would ask me to repeat myself. Every time this happened, for some reason, it just felt like they were saying to me, you don't belong here. You're not from here. And looking back now, I realized that wasn't always the case. Maybe it was never the case. But most of the time, they just probably didn't catch what I said the first time. But at the time, I created this narrative in my head that I didn't belong, that my voice wasn't valid. And to be honest, it held me back. It's amazing how much we get in our own way with stories we tell ourselves that aren't even true. And simply changing the way we think can change the direction of our lives and of our voices. For me, changing this mindset was a gradual process. It started with 3 key moments that I want to share with you. My first breakthrough moment came thanks to a professor named Michelle Tully. Michelle was a force of nature. She was a true social justice warrior who dedicated her life to equity and fairness to women and children all across the world. Her book called Voices of the Voiceless wasn't just a title. It was her mission and her life's work. So when Michelle invited me to work on a summer research project as an undergrad in Louisville, Kentucky, to study public housing policy, I had no idea how much this experience was going to change my life. We spent several weeks interviewing families in struggling neighborhoods, listening to their concerns and the challenges that they've gone through about moving from one public housing project to another. And we had to present our findings to community organizations as well as the mayor's office. And so we had to practice our presentations. And during those practice sessions for those presentations, Michelle would say to me, "Ehis, you have to project." I hope I'm projecting enough for Michelle today. She wasn't just talking about volume though. She wanted me to own my space, to believe in what I was saying, and to let that belief to come true in my voice. That experience with Michelle taught me this. Sometimes in life, we need someone to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. And that's why I created this podcast, to be that voice of possibility for someone out there, for that new immigrant, for that new college graduate in her first job, or for that person looking for a promotion in their workplace. Michelle is no longer with us. Rest in power, Michelle. But I believe in me planted a seed for the voice that I have today. Even after finding my voice in college, the doubts came back when I stepped into the corporate world. So my second moment came during my first job at KPMG. And for those of you who don't know, KPMG is one of the largest accounting firms in the world. And I started my career at the KPMG office in New York City. And as part of my job, I had to often make calls to clients, like a lot of professional services job. But every time I picked up the phone, it felt like a test. What if they don't understand me because of my accent? What if I embarrass myself? What if I embarrass my team? And at first, I just hesitated. I just didn't want to make those calls. And I let my nerves get the best of me. But something shifted one time. I remember one particular client call. I was nervous as usual, but as I walked them through their records, I pointed out some extra money that a customer had owed them, and they were very excited. And in that moment, I realized it wasn't about how shaky my delivery was. It was about the value of the message. So that was a turning point for me. And I stopped waiting for confidence, and I just started showing up even scared. Because confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something that you build by showing up even when you're scared. And each time I showed up scared, I felt like I moved closer to becoming the person who could one day own their voice. And every call, every presentation, each one just chipped away at my fear. Over time, I realized that courage comes first and then confidence would follow. And while my confidence grew at KPMG, I realized that truly owning my voice meant showing up as my true, authentic self. That became even more important when I started business school 2017. So my third moment came when I decided to go to business school to obtain my MBA. I had worked at several big name firms for 5 years, but deep down, I still felt like I didn't fully belong. But before I started though, I promised myself that I was going to experience business school as myself, as Ehis. No pretending, no trying to sound more American, no trying to fit in. And for the first time, I just wanted to exist in those spaces as myself. In my second year, I think this authenticity led me to dream big. And I became a co-president of the African Business Club. I wanted to do something big. This was in 2018. So the first Black Panther movie just came out. It was a blockbuster. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to bring the cast to campus to talk about Afrofuturism? Well, that's before I found out how much it was really going to cost to do that. So we didn't get the cast, but we brought in Nnedi Okorafor. She's an award-winning author, and writer for the Black Panther comics. That's what the actual movie is based upon. It became one of the most memorable events on campus that spring. So when I showed up authentically, I opened doors I didn't know even existed. And leading this African Business Club and organizing this Black Panther event, but weren't just achievements. They reminded me of the power of being fully unapologetically me, pursuing my own dreams. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. So whether it was Michelle Tully encouraging me to project those shaky client calls I had at KPMG, or just showing up authentically as myself in business school, every step was really about unmuting my voice. So now it's your turn. So what steps will you take today to unmute your voice and reach your potential? Maybe it's sharing an idea in a meeting. Maybe it's reaching out to a mentor. Maybe it's speaking up for yourself for promotion. But whatever it is, take that first step today. So thank you for listening. I really enjoyed doing this, and I really would appreciate hearing from you. If you have any feedback, you can reach me at unmutedmoments@gmail.com. I really do hope that this episode resonated with you. I also wanted to thank my family for their support and thank my wife, especially Dr. Ade Aketwamen, for all the support throughout this journey. I'm Ehis, and I'll see you next time. Till then, stay unmuted.